All right, welcome back to Anime Savants, everyone. And no, I can't even fucking say that shit out loud. Okay, whatever. This week I'm Kier Spicy. I'll say that.
Ah, fuck. Who am I this week? This is such a tough one. I guess I am Aram from Player, which I guess I'll talk about later.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, okay. All right, let's just start with DBZ Superhero. Which one did you name it? So did you? I'm assuming you saw it, right? You saw it?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw it this past weekend. How do I put this? Wait, wow, that makes that sound so bad. I did not dislike it. Let me be very clear. I did not dislike it. Actually, a lot of the things that I did like about it, was that, like, there's a lot of continuing plot lines that they're just making happen. Brawley showed back up, Beerus, Whis. Another thing that I really liked about the movie was the highlight of all of the supporting cast, separate of Goku and Vegeta. Like, they had the Goku and Vegeta moment and all kind of shit like that. And they did their thing on the planet. It was great. It was funny. Blah, blah, blah. They had them come back at the end and the after credits and do that other stupid shit. That was great. But I think one of the things that stood out to me for the movie was how the comedy was really good as far as, like, comedy-wise, consistency, especially with Bulma. Like, it actually kind of, like, akin to me back to, like, watching Dragon Ball. Like, seeing the way Bulma's just, like, constantly interacting with people. And also the fact that she's using Shenron for plastic fucking surgery. And, like, the moment that she said her wish, I was like, of fucking course. Because I was like, you're old. Like, your husband and Goku stay young because they have Saiyan blood. But you're kind of old. You're old, girl. Like, you're old. But
doesn't want to be a middle-aged lady.
Doesn't want to be a middle-aged lady. Even Trunks called her ass out when they were in Gotenks for. I was like, bruh, what the fuck? But then it even made it even better because when Shenron showed up, he was like, oh, you again. And I'm like, oh my, so like this shit's happening on a regular basis. She's literally collecting the Dragon Balls and using them for plastic surgery. Beautiful, perfect. I would say my only thing with the movie that kind of like wasn't meshing with me was Beast Gohan. And I say that because I don't really feel like the power up was earned. So, like, I feel like I was like, well, yeah, you're saying, and yeah, y'all are talented and all kind of shit like that, but usually there's some kind of, like, training or, like, there's, like, some, like, you know, hint to, like, oh, you know, Gohan's been secretly training when he does this. This is why he's always exhausted, shit like that. But we didn't get any of that. We basically just got, like, yeah, no, he's literally just been, like, not a neat, but, like, you know, like a sloth. Like, just, like, studying. Like, he still has, like, you know, muscularity and ability and shit like that. But he hasn't been doing any, like, hardcore training to, like, hone any of his senses, his body, or anything of the sort. So, that to me kind of was just like, okay. Like, sure. Piccolo's, though, completely understood it. And I also liked how they had him use the powers that he's been shown using throughout all the series. Like, it went all the way back to Dragon Ball with like the large form stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like let's do it. Like, bring all that shit back. Like, let's go. I especially liked his awakening scene where it looked like the thing on his back was like an Yggdrasil tree or some shit. And I was like, yo, what the fuck is this? This is not... I thought that the piss yellow Piccolo was the power-up. And so I was going to be like, I mean, that's cute. You still kind of useless. And then when he really awokened, I was like, oh, shit. Now this is nice. And it was fucking earned. And I honestly, you know what? I love Pan. I was really looking forward to her having, like, a real, like, big pivotal role fighting-wise. But she's 3 years old. So I was like, I really can't expect anything.
We're too early for that.
Yeah.
And I don't even really know if, based on what's happening with Super in general, you know, if that's really in the cards anyway. Yeah, I was kind of on the same wavelength. I have this thing about Dragon Ball movies, all of them, is that with some of the early exceptions, where like Tree of Might, and I'm just going way back. What's the other one? The first one with the Garlic Junior,
Oh
uh,
shit.
whatever,
Oh
like the
yeah.
first Dragon Ball Z movie.
Yeah.
If you like go back to some of those, first of all, they were very short. I Some of them may have been slightly more than an hour, like not very long.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, with the exception of like some of the sort of those early ones, Dragon Ball movies that have been, especially in the latest, super incarnation, they always feel like you could lose about three quarters of them and still get to
The full
everything.
story.
Yeah, because obviously you build up a conflict, but the structure of like Dragon Ball fights is very much you face the bad guy, you get wrecked, you face the bad guy again, you get wrecked again. Then you have some like intermediate like power up somewhere in between that. Then you face him a third time. It's all or nothing. Everybody's dead or something like
Yeah.
that. And then that's the moment when like the power gets busted out or whatever. That's usually the structure of like the more modern ones. If you go back before superhero, it was a little different. Number one, it was usually there were hero moments for some of the supporting cast. It was more of like I wouldn't say it
Yeah.
was more focused, but at least like I remember like in Tree of Might, right? They bring in fake Goku, who never gets mentioned again because he looks just like Goku. He's just Dark Goku. But there's like a whole squad of dudes. They've got to like face off with them. Every Z fighter gets their ass kicked, and then they all kind of have the same storyline of like got to overcome my opponent, and
Yeah.
then they bust out something cool. Rarely ever a power up. Usually just like gutting it out and just whooping their ass or like tricking them or something. Whatever. So then I like fast forward to like superhero, and my feeling was like I liked the setup. I liked the villains. I
Yes,
kind of
I did
liked
too.
I liked the tone that they were going for, which felt like much more original Dragon Ball than some of the stuff that's happened in like the super, even like later.
Universe.
Yeah, or even
Yeah.
like the Z stuff. Like it wasn't trying to be edgy, which is what Z tried to do. And then in like Super, there was a poor balance of like throwback comedy, and then like, oh shit, that's right. Like we're having like a real fight. Like there's stakes. So it kept the tone like through 90% of the film that I really liked until you get to the very very end and you find out like who the real villain is and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And like it kind of kept that. So I really enjoyed that part. But when you get to power ups in the final battle, I kept thinking to myself like, did the first 75% of this movie actually lead up to what I'm seeing, or
No.
was that kind of like its own? It's almost self-contained little plot line, and then you had to have like a big dumb fight at the end, which is why like as your point about Piccolo, I think is absolutely correct, because Piccolo is just a much better developed character than
Yeah.
Gohan ever was. Even though Gohan got so much screen time across like the
They
first.
abandoned that nigga after the Cell Saga. Basically.
Right, he got so much screen time up until the Cell Saga, but it just shows you like how little was done with him, where the plot of this movie was somehow, and this is also baffling to me. So Gohan is just trying to live a regular upstanding life as a person, and he's nerdy and he's smart, but it's always put off like he's a deadbeat moron who can't even
Yes.
take care of his own children. And he's throwing it all on Piccolo. Like the whole family just like dumps all the garbage on Piccolo to deal with.
To raise
But
their
the-
children.
Right, but the criticism of Gohan is that he doesn't train to fight. That's not the problem. You know what I mean? Like that's the solution. The
Be
conclusion.
a father.
The conclusion you're supposed to come to is like, man, isn't Gohan whack for not training and letting that stuff slide so that when bad guys show up, like he's struggling when he doesn't? No. The real problem is that he is a deadbeat, just like his dad. That's the actual problem. But none of that is resolved in the conclusion of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Becoming Beast Gohan doesn't mean he's there for his daughter. Or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't solve anything.
Yeah. And also how horrible he was at just, like, even recognizing Piccolo, like, power level when he came, Pan getting fucking kidnapped and him showing up, not being able to get to her. I'm just like, this is pretty disappointing. I feel like he was tacked on to the story. I felt like this is Piccolo's movie.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's like, this is actually the Piccolo movie, but they're so cowardly that they are unwilling to just make that film, and instead it has to somehow be about no, there's no Goku in this movie, there's no Vegeta in this movie, like, plot-wise. Okay, it has to be about Gohan, but then you start writing for Gohan, you're like, there's nothing here.
You can't do... Exactly.
What do we fucking do with this? And
so you keep him out of half the movie.
Right. The half that would make sense. Like, okay, not rewriting the film at all, but, like, just thinking about the beginning of the movie, right? You have the child of Goku's arch enemy from the Dragon Ball series set up as, like, the nemesis, right?
Yeah.
With all the old Red Ribbon stuff, like, you know, that's the plate, and then the antagonists are served up through that. So there's a lot of, like, throwback stuff and humor, but you already had a cool dynamic. If you wanted to make this about Gohan, if that was your goal writing this film, on the one hand you've got the son of the nemesis and the son of the hero. And then it could be about things that they believe in that because of different paths their lives take, you know, they come into conflict again. They could have even
had Geto interact with Gohan in like an academic sense.
Right, where maybe Gohan doesn't realize that who this person is.
Yeah.
And so in a non-conflict kind of way, they run into each other and it becomes clear that they have very different ideologies. And the fact that Gohan is also a nerd and a smarty pants means that he would connect with this person, you know, who's also a big time fucking nerd.
Yes.
Smarty pants.
Oh my God, yes.
And then it just becomes, you know, I'm not going to say anything more, but then that first 3/4 of the film can become more about the resolution of whatever conflict they have personally, right? Not generally, which is what the movie kind of was. It was like the conflict was, we're gonna fight, or what is a hero, or something like that. You know.
To be honest, I liked what they did with Geto as far as the villain and him basically making it very clear that I'm here to do my shit, and like it's honestly fuck your shit all day. Every day. And throughout the entirety of the film, even once he got the money from the Red Ribbon Army, he still was like talking back and basically being like, you don't need to do this, you need to do that, like relax, chill out, do this, that, etc., etc. And it was nice to see, like, that's another thing, like, Gohan was so unimportant that the what are their names? Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, like during the fight scenes, like coming to terms with like the disparity, like their beliefs, but then following what's going on right now and knowing that they're doing wrong, but still doing it just because they're ordered to do it. It's just like, that was more entertaining to me than basically any of Gohan's lines for the entirety of the movie. Like,
because it's the irony is that those are new characters, so they have to be developed from scratch.
Yeah.
And so they put in some energy in the first 3/4 of the film into developing them.
Yeah. Forgetting
the fact that Gohan also needs to be developed from scratch because they haven't done shit with him.
So, another thing that I will say that I actually really did enjoy about the movie and did not even like notice after the first few minutes was the style. Like, everyone was going like, oh, the CG mix, oh, cheap, da-da-da. It looked great to me. I enjoyed it. Honestly, I thought some of it, even some of the battles, I enjoyed the battles more in that style because, like, the environment's breaking. It looked way more dynamic with that style. I don't know why, it just did to me. And I felt like the battles were easier to follow because they couldn't just do the, like, we're gonna do like squiggly lines, and you can't see how fast they're moving. Like you could see the majority of the movements as they were fighting, like their opponent. So yeah, I really enjoyed the style.
No,
I wouldn't mind
they did a lot, and I would put that down to the directing, not just the action direction, but just the scene direction. So like the biggest complaint I have, and I think other people have who are really into like really cool choreographed fight scenes, is that you need to be able to follow the action. So if a character is standing in one place and then they have to go somewhere else to do something like throw a punch or a kick or get knocked through something, that you kind of that the way the action is directed, you can see where they're going.
Yeah.
And then as the camera cuts to finish the shot or continue the shot, you can follow that. So it feels like A to B to C to D. And a lot of what bad direction is just losing track of where people are or overly focusing on communicating just that and forgetting things like, when a punch lands, make it look impactful, make it look like, and one of the things this movie did a lot was they treated the 3D camera like a real camera. So that so some shots feel very natural, whether it's like a close up or even like a panning shot or an establishing shot. All that stuff was done the way you would do it if you were shooting a film. But there are places where they took advantage of the fact that this is CGI, so you can do shit with your camera that you can't do for real. One example is when like Piccolo is getting fucked up by Cell, and he like gets shot up into the sky. So you just you track him. Going up, like Gohan's looking. Then he falls down, and so what they do in the movie is that they just keep the camera focused on Piccolo's body coming down and then drop the camera with him, but not perfectly in sync. So it feels like the camera is also falling at a slightly different speed, but trying to keep the view on him. Yeah. That feeling of that the camera is alive is one of the first things they teach you in, art school, film direction and production, is that the camera should have life, right? Or when like I'm trying to think of another scene similar in the Cell fight when he goes to punch Gohan when Gohan's like powering up, and they do a thing where his fist, I don't know if anyone, it's hard to visualize this talking, but if you've seen the movie, you know the scene. Gohan is powering up. He's got the blue aura and everything else around him for, beast mode, whatever. And Cell screams, charges, throws a punch. The punch hits the energy wall, but Gohan doesn't move because the power is so great. But then the shockwave from his punch, which kind of looks like a blade, continues past his body. Yeah. And if you cut all those shots together, the wind-up shot, then it cuts to Cell lunging, then it cuts to the body coming into the shot, and then the fist landing on the body, then the explosion, where you can see Gohan not moving. Yeah. Which is the opposite of what's been happening so far. Every time you throw a punch, someone would get knocked around. Then they cut to behind Gohan, where you can't even see his body. It's just like a little shadow, like it's over his shoulder. And then the hand animated shockwave goes behind his body. Those like 4 scenes cut together communicate both how strong Cell is at that moment, and then also how Gohan has just level scaled him. Yeah. But it's not a static, boring shot. It also isn't going crazy. Like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Right. And the camera is actually relatively restrained. It shakes a little bit when the punch lands, but not very much, to show you the contrast. Because right before that, he was mollywopping Piccolo, and the camera was like all over the place because like Piccolo's getting bounced around. This one is like it didn't move. The camera didn't move because Cell was unable to, land a, good hit on Gohan. That's just good action direction. That's all that is. It's not like the quality. It could have been lower fidelity or worse models or maybe using other kinds of special effects that didn't look as natural. But the fact that it was directed that way meant that it communicated the violence of what was going on, but also still told the story. So once it got to the action parts, I had no issues. And I'm right there with you that the style ultimately kind of faded to the background. Yeah. When they got to those scenes.
Yeah. What else was there about it? I mean, that was... along with what I said earlier about like, you know, the supporting cast, other people showing up, all that kind of stuff like that. I like that Gotenks showed up, but also like they did some bullshit where they showed them doing the correct fucking fusion and then didn't show teen Gotenk. Like that pissed me off actually. I was just
annoying.
Like,
it's
like
annoying.
Why would you do that? Because that's the next thing that you expect when they fuck it up. It's like, okay, they're gonna eventually separate and then we're gonna get like, you know, the good one. Even though the battle was over, it would have been a nice little like, you know, oh shit, you know, look forward to this in the future. Like these niggas can do this. But you know, it wasn't. I will say, Bulma had a really big fucking role in the movie. Like I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't expecting her to be that involved in the movie as a whole. I did expect him to be part of Capsule Corp by the end of the movie. I saw that shit coming with Dr. Ghetto. And I did see that I thought either both or one of the androids was gonna die. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it be what it be.
They weren't trying to do too much with that.
Yeah, they weren't doing too much. Pawn scenes were great. She punched out homeboy at preschool like it was nothing, and then proceeded to play hopscotch with his fucking shoe. I was like, this is a toddler. This is exactly a toddler. Like, yeah, I get it. Videl was like one scene and done. Like, didn't exist. So, but she also, I don't even know if she's even that much so part of the stuff in the manga and shit like that anyways.
I don't think so.
After she did her like learning how to fly arc in the Boo saga, it was kind of just like, all right, girl, you still useless. So what are we gonna do about this? So
I mean, that's a consequence of that. The fact that very little is done with humans in Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
very little, which is a sad thing because you ever watch the original Dragon Ball? One of the coolest parts about it was that it was a martial arts story, and so there was this huge variety of people, fighters, antagonists, supporting cast, who had very like rich and interesting powers. They were all based on martial arts, and they were cool individually or just conceptually, and they didn't always add up to very much.
When like, Yamcha and Tien actually like could do something.
Yeah, like when the Wolf Fang Fist was something that needed to be overcome, there was variety. But when they got to Z, that creativity got pushed into other directions, right? And I think that, if nothing else, that's the biggest loss, is that it all became about, like, weird alien superpowers and not about, like, Goku's connection with... and not technique, and also not Goku's connection to his humanity, which is ultimately supposed to be the thing
about Dragon Ball. Yeah.
Well, really, that was introduced in Z. Dragon Ball. He didn't know that he was an alien. He just knew that he had a tail, and it was sort of like a retelling of like Journey to the West with like martial arts. It was in Z where like shit got crazy immediately, because what's the first thing that happens in Z?
Raditz.
Raditz shows up, and it's like, hey, Goku, actually, you're an alien soldier. Why haven't you annihilated this planet yet? And Goku's like, what the fuck? What the absolute fuck are you talking about? And then the story then takes off in all this wacky, you know, space martial arts and like invasions and going to other planets and like other secondary Dragon Ball, all this other wacky shit. But in like Dragon Ball, it was like, here's this weirdly powerful child who was raised by a lone dude out in the woods.
Yeah.
Doesn't know anything about the world. The world that he lives in is actually super chaotic and full of crazy people doing crazy martial arts, and he's just journeying around getting to know the world and becoming like a fighter. And by the end of Dragon Ball, when he's a teenager, you are pretty convinced that this is like a martial arts, you know, shonen adventure story. It turns into sci-fi in Z, and I think that was the greatest thing ever. But then in like when I look at this movie and the other movies, like especially just Super in general, I just feel like that got in the way of creative ideas. And in the first half of superheroes, There are actually some creative ideas because they're calling back to Dragon Ball when it was at its most creative. It just all kinds of falls apart at the end when it's like, all right, it's just Cell.
Maybe there might be some hope for that because with Vegeta's new
that'd be a nasty nickname though.
Oh my god!
Call that nigga Vegeta.
Oh my god! With his new like approach to training, where it's like a mindset kind of thing, and not just like fully body and just brawl on the nigga. Maybe that could be some sort of like lead in, but also. I don't know if that's even possible. Listen, with Goku.
One day we can talk about my pitch to totally reboot the series and just make it good again. But that's a story for a different day.
I mean, can you imagine them reintegrating martial art styles and as opposed to like shooting like the ki blasts like envelop you can have like ki blast armor. And shit to reinforce your fucking There's a way to do it. We will do an episode for that.
There's a way to do it that's true to the spirit of the series. Can withstand all the bullshit that they've layered on top of it with Super, but takes it to a place where you can get some control over what the fuck is going on. Because right now the series is just out of control. There is no.
I don't even know what's going on in the manga. All I know is that Black Frieza.
Yeah.
I know about that.
You mean Black Air Force Frieza? Yeah.
Black Air Force Frieza happened. And the main reason I saw it happen was because Twitter lost its shit. The memes and everything. And I'm like, why is Frieza trending? Like, what is going on? And I can't wait to see how they're going to... Well, I'm pretty sure in the manga, the manga readers, but I'm very interested to see... what is going to be covered in this new season of Super next year.
Yeah.
I'm very interested.
All I'm going to say is that martial arts in stories like this, in shonen stories, needs to be a pathway to some kind of enlightenment. That's kind of sort of what it was in Dragon Ball, but not really. But if you want to go to that next level and you want to reboot things a little bit, get shit under control without throwing it away, just remember, enlightenment should be the goal. That's the goal. And that's all I'm gonna say. So we can turn around and overall, did you enjoyed the movie?
Oh right? Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the movie. Like I only have those criticisms because I actually have to like think about them like after the fact, and because they were kind of like, there was something up here where I was like, but this doesn't flow to me. But overall, I was still just enjoying the entire experience. But it should have been Superhero. It should have been Piccolo's Ascendance or some shit like that.
I 100% agree with that. That they started a little something in like the second scene of the movie and they just never paid it off. It was just like, yeah, Piccolo, just pick up all of our shit. Just like, go do that.
Yeah.
And then,
what else is there? They animated the black girl really nicely, so that was nice.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. So, what have you been watching?
Well, I took a little bit of a siesta. I was out of town, but I was able to still follow some shows, even though I was literally out of the country and on potato internet for a week. So, I want to start off by saying I've kind of dropped a couple series, and it shouldn't be surprising to anybody because we've talked about it. But I'm no longer watching Strongest Sage with the second or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
that one, and I guess it's Isekai Life, but that one and Black Summoner. Ironically, not because I think that they're bad or that they don't, have a flavor that would fit for somebody if you're looking for a different version of the same isekai. But that's also kind of the problem, is that they feel like they're half of the same show, but like spread out into two different series. And maybe like, I want to say a month ago, a little more than a month ago, we talked about those shows in context with the other isekai that were running the season, but also shows that just don't have a good antagonist. What they have is a premise. And so the premise in both shows, I think, just doesn't really hold up once they got to the midway point of the season, because in both cases there's no real story yet besides the characters kind of moving from town to town or dealing with like the monster of the week. I mean, literally in Isekai Life, they detoured for like almost 3 episodes to deal with like getting some armor for his little creatures.
What?
And then Godzilla shows up, and it's like,
Okay.
I see what inspired them to want to do this, but
what happened to the cult shit and all that kind of stuff? Like,
I mean, like,
what?
it seems like it's sort of related to that, but my point is, like, you can see a concept that the people who were writing this, or at least adapting it for the show, had. It just doesn't work in practice. It just comes off as, like, boring filler. Like, I could have gotten through this part of whatever the light novel was in a paragraph and a half, but we spent 2.5 episodes doing it. Wasting. There was some like comedy interspersed in there, but then with had to do with like some assassins that were coming after him and his sort of plot to make himself look weak, so they would just assume that he wasn't the guy, and that was dovetailed with the wolf's backstory. And so there was some comedy where like he's trying to show that his summons suck by having the wolf lose to weak monsters, but then every time it looked like the wolf was gonna get his ass kicked, he powered himself up. Yeah. He's like, no, I have to show them that I'm not worthless, and so he keeps having the shonen moment of getting stronger and stronger. So ultimately, like, the main character has to still kill the 2 assassins anyway, which is, I don't know why he didn't do that in the first place. But okay.
Yeah, I remember you speaking about this last time. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was in the midst of them being in this village where there were like dragons on a mountain, and then there was a big boss dragon in the mountain, which we all knew he'd have to fight anyway. But turned that boss dragon. Is
that the boss dragon that's in the opening?
Yeah, I just don't care. Like, I think that's what it is. Like, that whole segment just sapped my interest in whatever the gimmick for this show was gonna be. Ran out of steam right there, and so I'm just like, okay, somebody else wants to get something out of this, that's fine. There still is no real antagonist. There's still no real driving force moving the story forward. It's still vague. The main character's like he's like a blank slate, but they're not filling it in with anything. And on top of that, it looks like the only gimmick that the writer of this series really was into when he was writing it was fucking food wars. So, like, the only character trait the main character has, outside of being, like, depressed from being worked to death, is that he has, like, a quasi-sexual relationship with food, where, like, he imagines, like, there, like, he
Wait, does he give the food human forms or something?
No, it's even sillier. So, like, he'll bite into something that's supposedly the most delicious dish in the town, and then he'll be transported to another world where, like, he's Michelangelo painting, with his little monsters, like, touching God because this food is so good. And, like, his motivation is literally, like, we're going to go to the next place to find better food. And I'm like,
okay,
that
so yeah,
wasn't what I
continue. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I didn't, that's, you can write that story. Isn't that one of the big, like, light novels out there about, like, eating food from a dungeon and, like, it's kind of like food wars mixed with like, that's already a thing. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, we got the refrigerator
that already exists.
So
yeah, I don't appreciate that tidbit because it doesn't feel like a homage. It feels like trying to find. It's like a pile of shit in someone's junk drawer, which is like, here are all my interests. I'm just gonna throw them into the story, but they don't. It doesn't fit. So that one's out. And then Black Summoner is just it. I mean, it's sort of a harem happening, but then I don't care. Like, there is some backstory there to the world building that they're doing that I won't say is unique, but is at least like a little unusual. But the problem is that the show wants the main character to be an anti-hero because there are heroes that have already been transported that are gonna deal with the main problem. But you already know how those stories go, right? Yeah. You have, like, the main party of heroes and then, like, the outcast or the guy who's, like, trying to, like, play it on the side. But then, of course, it's a viewer insert power fantasy. So the main character has to solve all the real problems from the shadows and maybe do it in a way that's, like, not No, this guy is just, like, a pretty vanilla nice guy. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But it's also boring. It's also not not delivering on any of the possibilities that you could go with that premise. It's just kind of vanilla. So if you want that, you know, he has a character, like it is a thing. So you could watch it, but I don't think, I mean, I wasn't getting very much out of it, so I kind of dropped those two. Still watching Overlord, which is good. Whatever you think of Overlord the last few seasons, it's the same thing. So if you like it, it's great, and if you are iffy on it, then you're probably not going to get anything more out of this season either. At least there's more of Momonga less of Momonga and more of the Ain's character.
Oh, okay.
And he's doing things that are evil, and they are leaning a little bit more into like, when I'm with my Nazaric creatures, yeah, I'm trying to be a good boss, and so it's sort of like a workplace commentary. But then, like, he actually sucks. Like, he doesn't know anything about what's going on. He's just kind of making it up. And so when he stumbles into something that's serious, it's kind of played for comedy. But then the next scene, I'll be talking about him genociding whole cities full of people. And it's like, oh, is that supposed to be important? Or is that supposed to be a joke? I don't know. That's the way the series has always kind of been. So it's like, oh, okay. If you like that, cool. If you don't like it,
yeah. I feel like if it doesn't happen on screen or if they don't show it, then I'm kind of just like, I don't know what the fuck you... I don't know if that happened or not then.
Right.
For them, at least.
Well, I mean, like, in the last episode, he was talking about, like, wiping out whole towns and being pretty, like, on the nose, like, we gotta kill everybody. And then later on, he was like, well, I'm deliberately letting a few people survive to tell the other towns that so it's like you're waging mass genocide, which I guess is an evil thing to do since you're role-playing an evil character. But, like,
yeah.
What am I supposed to make of the callousness upon which whole civilizations are annihilated? Is that part of the joke? Or is that something I'm supposed to take very seriously for the purpose of the story? I don't know. So, like, that's always been my little quibble with Overlord, is that the power fantasy side of it is great, and the sort of workplace comedy side of it is funny. And when those two things join together, sometimes it's awesome, and then other times it's like, what the fuck are they trying to say here? Or are they trying to say nothing and I'm wasting my time? And I never know which shit is. So, I still get something out of it, but it's not hitting. And then the very last thing that I think I'm watching that we don't share is Harem. Isekai Harem is what I call it. But it is absurdly the most interesting of all those four shows.
This is so unexpected. It's just
so...
Every week you have better things to say about it.
And I'm not even apologizing for it. Like, I like trash. Like, I enjoy trash, especially when that trash is, like, unapologetic about what it is. And I think I've already said my piece about how if they could just release a version with all of the porn cut out, just cut it out. Just cut all of it out of the episode. This would be my favorite isekai, maybe next to Isekai Uncle, but like of the season. This would be my favorite one, hands down. Because it's in there and because of some of the themes, I gotta like dial that back and to say it's a fun show when it's being a regular show. And in the last couple episodes, it dawned on me why this one is working and the other ones aren't. It's not the world building. It's not like, the unapologetic smut that's in there. No. It works because it has a very tiny cast of characters. And they focus on those characters. And they focus on those characters so intently that you actually wind up learning a lot about the world through them, which is the way it's supposed to be. So, I mean, the most exciting thing that happened in the last two episodes is that they left the main town and bought a house.
Oh!
And like an actual house. And it wasn't
Is that as expensive as a slave?
I mean, it seems like it was maybe a little bit less, but
oh my god!
I mean, I'm not even gonna go there. But like, because we've learned a lot about the power system, and we've sort of learned about the economy, and we've sort of learned about the rules and other things and how they can be manipulated or broken and how classes work and other things that are like fundamental for setting the table for whatever world this is.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to just like the act of buying a house, there was actually some like cool stuff that I was interested in. I'm like, oh, so this home is supposed to be like for adventures, and it prevents, you know, people from using magic so that you can't be ambushed or killed inside your home. But then because his skill of teleport isn't magic, it actually becomes super convenient because once he goes to a location, he can always return to that location like it's a video game.
Yeah.
So it turns out now that by buying this particular home, he's kind of got like a fortified area where he can teleport directly into a labyrinth without paying any of the upfront fees. So save a ton of money doing that. And it's like, it's not, this is genius. It's just like him playing around in the world like, oh, I can do this. Oh, that's how that stuff works. Oh, well, here's how I apply the thing that I learned before. That's just good writing. And then if we overlook how we got here, but you know, him and his little puppy dog, you know, girlfriend slave.
Girl,
they actually
does he have more than one now, right?
No. They've managed to keep it to just the one that he's fucking. But like, their interactions and how they learn with each other feel more natural than some of the other shit where none of this like horrific, you know, undercurrent is there. It's silly that is what has happened. It's silly, but it's the truth. So none
of the rest of the harem has even shown.
No.
Wow.
And then that puts into context that first scene from episode 2 where we see the future.
Yeah.
And it's like the juxtaposition of like huge boobed harem, all of them coming with the main character to find his lost son from a fling in episode 1. This clearly takes place literal years down the line, right? Like, wow. And it's not even going to be in the season. Like,
I'm dead. That's what it sounds like.
And then I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, oh shit, even in this first season, the guy who stole his fucking thief's bandana and got enslaved, because that's what happens when you break the law, you become a bandit, and then the laws don't apply to you anymore, so people can do whatever they want to you. Mm-hmm. So that guy showed up in a raid on the slave master's home, and I'm not going to give away the scene, but like it was a payoff for that thing where the main character realized that everything is more connected in this world. It's not like it's not like a video game. Like I don't know why this level of effort was put into a show like that. I don't know. I
literally was expecting smut.
Yeah.
I literally was expecting just like smut. But you know what this sounds like? This is sounding like Titan's Bride. This sounds like Titan's Bride, which I know you've never.
Well, you told me it was the same experience. You're like, oh, the politics and like everything else.
Yeah, the politics, the magic system, the different races, like all of that shit is well expounded upon in Titan's Bride. But there's just like, you know, every other chapter, you know, it's going down.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I was into watching them buy a house. That's all I can say about this, like, isekai that slammed into the porn factory. Like, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about Classroom of the Elite.
Okay, so let everybody know I'm behind, you know, catching up. I actually will be caught up. I think on episode 9 aired yesterday. So I'll be caught up as of episode 10 because of a change in schedule for me or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, anyways, I'll be caught up as of that week. But so I've been seeing a lot of Kushida talk and stuff. So I'm assuming so. The last episode that I watched was after the fucking games or whatever. Mm-hmm. Where homeboy punched homeboy. He called fucking Horikita useless. They broke that girl's foot further on purpose. And then Kushida, because I would say one thing that I thought that Ayano Koji was setting Kushida up as like the traitor, and that she actually wasn't a traitor. She was just like chaotic neutral. Proved me completely wrong.
No, this bitch crazy.
That bitch
keep it a buck.
Betrayed, and the fact that she was like, oh, actually, you know what? You on my bad side too. So not only I want her expelled, I want you expelled also, bitch. You're gonna get the fuck out of here. And then when she showed her real face during that like confrontation scene, it was like, oh girl. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I also really like how I like Ayano Koji and Rei's relationship now, where like they're not putting on a front in front of the rest of the class to be like, oh no, we're cool now, whatever. They're meeting, they're talking about it. Rei has questions, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give you an answer. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like Karuizawa, like her insertion into this story as like a full-time supporting character is very interesting. I mean, the what the show does is it kind of sticks to its guns on a lot of the representations that it wants to maintain for all of its, even when like, you know, we're learning more about them and we're getting into their backstories, everything else, it's always once they're in the classroom, there's a very front-facing sort of relationship that everybody has that is very much, we're in school, we are, you know, we're students. All this other wild and crazy stuff that's happening in the background takes a backseat to dealing with academic life, as crazy as it is in the, you know, the world that they're in. And so Karuizawa's character, I looked at her at the beginning of the season like this could just be a monkey wrench in the direction of this show, right? Because for 1,000 reasons, right? Number one, she's the first character who's been brought into whatever you want to call the inner circle, right? Because she's running around doing his bidding, knowing full well that he's got this second personality that nobody else knows about, right?
Yeah.
So she's very easily it could just turn into like a will they won't they quasi harem situation, but it doesn't, right? Because he's very consistent about like, listen, bitch, I'm gonna tell you what to do. Don't talk to me about some other stuff. You could be catching feelings over in the corner, which, you know, if you catch up to the current episodes, it's very clear.
So her parasite tendencies are coming back.
Well, it might be more indifferent than that. I don't know. I'm not.
Okay.
Yes. Well, but like she's the first character who's in the actual inner circle. Yeah. And the show or the writing, you know, in general, has managed to balance all three of these different levels. Whereas like in season 1, Ayano Koji, the real person, or whatever we know as the real person, is only communicating to the audience.
Yeah.
That's it. So that part can be kind of kept at the base, you know, bubbling under the surface. And then you have like his manipulation of other students, which is sort of like the second level, because they're obviously in like a Horikita, right? Like he interacts with her. So like, you know, they know the other face, and she knows that he's smart. She knows that he's capable of doing a bunch of stuff. Doesn't know anything else about that. And then you have like the front part, which is just people interacting in the classroom, in the school setting. And they've managed to add that more to that bottom layer and the top layer, and still make each episode pretty fun to follow. Yeah. So I thought like Kurizawa was going to be like a problem for that piece, but instead she's been a nice compliment.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that people are getting hyped about it, are justifiably hyped. We're kind of getting to we've gotten through the mid boss.
Okay.
And since you haven't caught up, you can watch and that'll resolve. You'll see the resolution of that.
The mid boss, yeah.
Right, but then the final boss comes afterwards, and that was set up in the school competition stuff. Yeah. Was it Ryuen or whatever his name? Ryuen?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, so he's like the final boss,
of the season.
Which is good because we set him up at the end of season 1 as like, you know, that's the level they've got to get past. And it makes sense, right? Because he's the representative of Class C. So like winning in a confrontation versus him is kind of like stepping things up to the level. Because we haven't even met most of the people in like B as like antagonists.
Yeah. Just the main class representative girl.
Yes, exactly. And some other things happened in not this week's episode, but the episode before that, where there's like some cracks in Class C, and it's not.
Yeah.
And
well, there
Ryuen
was definitely there was a traitor because someone sent that recording to Ryuen when he was trying to blackmail Horikita,
right,
and like have her beg that night.
Right. So, and it's not. I don't know if it's a swerve, or or there's something like I don't know. So like the show keeps me on my toes because I often can't predict what they intend to do with some of these games, or like whether what's the right way to say this? It's a great thing that the main characters generally don't have to win in order to progress the ascent that they're trying to have. They can lose games, and still not lose, which then makes the convoluted sort of cat and mouse stuff way more interesting when you know that there's a possibility that actually things don't turn out well, or they don't turn out perfectly, and it doesn't just end the series. It's like, if you don't overcome this challenge, everybody is dead. Well, I mean, obviously then to have
Not
a story that can't happen. So you kind of like telegraphed it. Whereas like very rarely does the show give you a scenario where it's unacceptable for the main cast to lose, which is good. So I like it a lot.
Yeah. Okay. As far as Made in Abyss, because I know you've read, so you know. So I haven't gotten to the Birth of La Puta yet episode. I know that was last week. I just haven't watched it yet. But this shit, literal boo boo. I knew as soon as like the topic of water came up, I was like, something's gonna happen with the water. Something's gonna happen with the fucking water. And of course, they're fucking like parasites in the fucking water. And of course, the water is literally like a pool of like water that's sitting in a corpse of something that's just over years. Like, I'm just like, okay. So like, and of course, the disease makes you more thirsty. So all you want to do is drink more water to introduce more parasites into the, like, I was like, okay.
I was like, bro, kill me. When I read that shit, I was like, I'm fucking good.
Okay.
I'm so good.
And that wasn't even the end. Like, and then it goes further because niggas are literally just like they're turning. So now I know what that wooden hand from the beginning was, and the crystal thing, because they found a crystal somewhere. And also in the middle of the crystal, it has that like thing that Homegirl had at the beginning of the season that she gave to the village elder. So I'm assuming that what she gave to the village elder was also some kind of wish thing that they just didn't know what it was on the surface. So now they gave it to Homegirl. It implanted into her body. They did not know what her wish was. And on fucking cue.
Here we go.
Right on fucking cue. Just the worst possible. The absolute worst. Well, no, it's gonna get worse. I know it's gonna get worse than this. I know it's gonna get worse. But the worst for me so far, not only was her body deformed into like nothing, she's constantly they're constantly having babies and watching them die. Like 3 to 4 minutes after and then when they showed her with just like all of them like this, just like crying, I was like, how do you come up with shit like this? Like, how?
I know that at that point it may have been the worst concept I'd ever read. And I read through all of Berserk, and I was just like, this is actually the worst thing.
So bad. Like I was just like screaming. I was just like, like where? How? And then, of course, after that, Homegirl gets the disease. wakes up perfectly fine one day, and then the other niggas looking out the sunset saying, I told you she would be the one to deliver us. So I'm like, did you? So I don't know what happened to her, but what I assumed is they chopped that bitch up and ate her. I'm assuming. I could be wrong. I don't know, but I also am one episode behind, so I'm pretty sure they explain it. And also, Faputa is born. She has to be born from her in some form of fucking I don't fucking know. All I know is that, like, with all the warnings that you have given, and I'm just like, yeah, like, but that was crazy what happened, blah, blah, blah. And you were like, it is going to get worse. Like, it's going to get, like, I thought Prushka's shit was like, okay, this is pretty bad, but, like, I don't really see it getting worse than this. And here we go. And this is the first layer.
It's too
past the point of no return.
It's like two poles of horror, right? Because, like, Prushka is like the violation of what is supposed to be a very intimate relationship between father and child.
Yes.
Combined with the ghoulish fate and then ultimate sacrifice, right? The fact that before they went down the elevator, Prushka was still connected to her father.
Yeah.
Right? That is heartbreaking and also horrifying in her physical fate. Right? And then she turns into the whistle and you're like, okay, that's just tragic. It's tragic what happened, but I'm horrified by how we got here. The shit with fucking Imryu? Or Irumyu? Whatever?
Yeah, Irumyu,
whatever
Irumi, yeah, whatever her name is.
Fuck that! Fuck that! Fuck that! Fuck it! Fuck it!
What else? Like,
fuck
what?
It!
I don't even know.
And they've covered like 70% of the story. The end of the story is still fucking, it's tragic and like, whatever. But the concept, the fucking concept, how fucking sick it is. The final episode is announced to
be an hour, so I know it's gonna be bad again.
Yes, the concept of this is one of, if not the worst, just general ideas that I've ever read in my life. It's everything about it, and again, it's kind of playing with the same tragic elements that the show likes to do, where it's like, fuck it.
But I gotta give it to him. He set this shit up from the very beginning. He set this shit up with her, like, her wish made all the fucking sense in the world, not because of all that talking that they did about, like, you know, their trauma and their family being their family until they found out how useless they were in their own societies. But, like, from the first episode of this season, they were like, yeah, that we don't consider that child a child because they cannot get pregnant. So that was already just, like, in the back of my head. I was just like, well, I honestly feel like y'all raped her to find out that she couldn't get pregnant. So that's number one. That's where I already was like, And then for her to bring it up again, like, later on, I was like, okay, she brought it up again. Okay, whatever. That's weird. And now I'm like, you did this on purpose.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to give away the rest of the story, but it's going to be, I mean, it's coming real soon. They're going to explain everything. And it's like...
Yeah, what is it? September 28th is the day. That's the final part of this one. And then there's more.
And the shit all comes full circle.
Oh.
Like, here's the thing about Maiden. This is my Made in Abyss general feelings, which is... It's a complete the show, the story, the production. It's a complete concept from top to bottom about, you know, the corruption of the innocence of youth, and then taking that idea and then remixing it and remixing it and remixing it and remixing it, you know, through the journey down and what it
Yeah.
costs all of the characters to just learn what is true about the world that they live in. That is a great, complete concept. And the fact that it's constantly re-rolled again and again in new and
horrible,
like horrifying but weirdly satisfying ways, because you don't watch the show to be horrified, but
no.
but the process of getting to the realization of how bad something is layered, no pun intended given that they're going through these different layers, but it's layered with genuine character building, world building, and consistent connections from idea to idea to idea. Which sort of like, you look at the whole thing as a tragedy, like everybody involved, from like the Delvers to the, people at different layers, to the antagonists, to like the people, everything that's there, even the hostility of the environment, and how the abyss itself actually is, it's almost like a living creature in a, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like all of that neatly ties together because concepts are well developed and they fit together. So like it's a great experience to have the story unfold on top of you. It's also fucking oppressive and gross. I don't know how that works, but it just works.
Oppressive is a very good word, because
yeah.
I think at the core of it for me is that you're right. I'm not watching it for the horror. I'm watching it because I honestly want to know what the fuck is going on with the abyss. Like,
yes.
Where did this shit come? Like, where did this shit come from? Why is this shit here? Why did it appear one day? And also, what the fuck is there a bottom? And what the fuck is down there? Like, that is my driving point, which is a good thing because that was the whole concept from the very beginning. And then we get to the end of the first season, it's kind of just like, yeah, you thought, bitch, but this is going to be a different kind of ride. Like, it's not going to be, oh, no, we almost got hurt. And it's like, it's going to be shit. And I would just like to say that Bone Druid is just such a fucking shit fuck. The fact that, like, he even, like, went down there and, like, was, like, showing off Mitty. And it was like, you can't have her. And then bringing her back. I'm like, you are honestly
such a
so
fucker.
Horrible.
He's
like,
a
just
fucker.
So horrible. So,
but then if you actually, okay, this is not a but, okay? This is just an and. He is horrible, and he's a genius.
Yeah, no, I completely give it to him. But that's the thing, though. First of all, because no one actually knows him from the time when he's actually a human. Because like now, like he lacks, or if he did even ever had, like the emotional like filters or like stop gaps to be like, this is morally doing it.
Doesn't give a shit. Doesn't give a fuck. And then when you see like how much it took to go from the 5th layer to the 6th layer, the idea that he actually succeeded in securing a route from 5th to 6th by hook or by crook, mostly crook, it's like, okay, I can kinda, in a very, like, loose way, respect.
He's technically the only one that can go back up.
Yes. Yeah. I can kind of respect that, but only in the sense as a viewer, I just want to know what he knows. I want the information. I want to know what is this shit? What is it? What is happening? Where'd you find all these,
Where'd you find the information? Where did you find out the truth about the white whistles?
Yes, like, exactly.
Where's this information coming? Which, you know what? It would make sense that a lot of it is probably in those upper layers because, like, Rico and Reg, they just went straight down. They didn't really, like, adventure and look
they weren't
for
exploring
artifacts.
Each layer so much as trying to figure out what's the way to get down to the next one.
Yeah. So that would make sense that like there's a whole bunch of knowledge on those layers that have just that they just didn't look for or has already been explored and it's only within a certain group's knowledge, especially when you consider white. Because there's even that white whistle, the heavyset dude.
Yeah.
From the very beginning of the first season, and I'm like, he gave off a very jolly, happy doopy demeanor, and I'm like, sir,
bro.
now that I know what a white whistle is, bitch, who is that? And what's your story?
Yes. So there's a lot of like the good kind of mystery in this series. And let me just be clear. I don't know. I'm a little behind on the manga. They're not as far ahead as I would have hoped, given the time between seasons and everything else. But I am pretty confident that whatever the final answers are to the things that the author wants to answer are going to be thought-provoking. That's it. That's really why I like this show and why I will suffer through the pain sometimes of watching it or reading it, because I think that there's some really good storytelling happening that's leading to ideas that are going to be well fleshed out by the time it's all over. Because they already feel pretty well fleshed out now, but there's a lot of like mystery underlying, like, the what and the why. That's what you sign up for. It's kind of like Berserk, right? Most people who are told about Berserk are told about like the most horrifying parts of it, the shocking parts, the things that are edgy, or they test the boundaries of what you might find palatable. But when you read it or when you watch it, you realize that like all of that stuff there is for setting the mood, for creating
it's within
stakes.
that realm, like it makes it.
But the actual stories that are being told with the individual characters, their motivations and their struggle against the world is like, it's a well thought out. Miura had a very well thought out concept, and he kept spinning it and remixing it and evolving it over the course of the story he wanted to tell. Now, we don't know what ultimately the conclusion is from like a plot point of view, but the act of reading Berserk is both horrifying and oppressive, but it's also enjoyable, because when the characters succeed or they learn something, or Guts goes through an ordeal and comes out the other side of it a different person, you felt like you went through all that heavy shit to get there, which is what I think Made in Abyss does as well. Like, Riko is still pretty like grounded, maybe a little less naive than she was when she first went down.
A little.
I mean,
got a way to go.
Well, yeah, but like she still has like a kind of wide-eyed interest in knowing what is on the other side of everything.
Yeah.
And so because that hasn't changed, when she gets through something like fucking Edo Front, like she has changed, you the reader or viewer has changed by going through that horrible situation, but the things you follow that character for are still there. It's like the inverse of ReZero, right? Where you want Subaru to be a better person, and so you're going through all this bullshit with his character, hoping that, oh, did you finally learn the lesson that I already know you're supposed to learn? Did you learn it? Well, here we don't really know what the lesson is supposed to be, and Riko and her squad, whatever they take out of that is going. It feels unique, but it feels earned, and then it sucked for them and it sucked for you. So now you're right on the same level following the story. So I really like it a lot.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's gonna hold for me, but we will see.
Some fucking bullshit. That's what it is.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, I did watch the first episode of Parallel World Pharmacist, or Pharmacy, and I really, really liked it. Before you go any further, how did you feel about the setup for episode 1? How he got there? I liked that. I liked how they made it very clear on what his motivations were for his life in the previous world. I like that. And I kind of like, I was wondering, I was like, oh, is he gonna like fuck up an experiment, and it's like something that he was experimenting with gonna like, he's gonna catch a disease and like die or whatever. No, the nigga literally just like died from malnourishment and exhaustion.
He worked himself to death.
Literally worked himself to death, which is possible. So I'm like, okay, cool. We get to the new world. It's kind of upbeat. It's cool. It's funny. Blah blah blah. They're introducing things to us one by one, and then we get to the end of the episode, and the episode ended. I don't know if I've seen it. I probably have seen an isekai that's ended like this, where at the end of the first episode, like the supposed like first ally is like, "Fuck you, nigga. want nothing to do with you. Please don't kill me. I won't say anything. And with that, I was like, oh, wow. Interesting. I liked how they were highlighting his powers with, like this. And then once he, identifies what the actual source is, it lights up and things like that. But it was typical isekai stuff. But I think that the path that they used for the first episode, it wasn't just the, okay, and now you're settled. Or you healed someone in the first episode. Good job. We're going on from here. It's no, it's still up in the air. It's eventually going to get solved, I'm pretty sure. And also looking at the opening, it looks like you said, there's gonna be some fighting for sure. And yeah, I mean, after that first episode, I was like, I want to know more. What the fuck is going on? Because someone came, he has the powers, he's got the Yggdrasil tree tattoo on both arms. Is he technically a reincarnation of that god? Or did the god bless him in some form of fashion? And then also, how the fuck is he gonna talk her down and then also, make the pharmacy stuff happen? Because he is OP, because he literally can just make basic compounds just out of nothing. I don't even feel like there's any MP either, because the girl said that you only have you have a finite amount of magic power your whole life. And so the way that he's just been popping off accidentally though at that, and I'm like, okay, well, he's unlimited. So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I didn't expect, I think what I expected was something a lot more vanilla.
Yeah.
And vanilla's not bad, but vanilla can also be very uncomplicated. And they chose a path for this story that by necessity is complicated, and judging from even the setup, how he died and the effort that was put into that scene or the set of scenes, I actually had so much more interest in following along on the story coming out of the first episode, because they were doing a lot of things that required research and understanding their concept. Right?
Yeah.
I like that a lot. One thing I haven't done, but I would love to. So, one of the things is my wife does a lot of bio research, and I've seen the inside of labs and lab procedures and everything else. And I remember way back when Soul Eater was running, not Soul Eater, Fire Force was running, and I mentioned that in season 2 they had a scene where Licht was his past, when he was a researcher, and there was details in those scenes where I'm like, either they consulted somebody who had that background, or they knew, because he was typing up his paper in LaTeX, and it was clearly a screen capture, and then they drew over it like it was animation, but I know LaTeX, and I'm like, oh, they're writing a paper that way. That's such a specific thing that only people who do any kind of research really know about, because it's such a niche, detail to include. Well, in episode 1 here, when he's doing the pipetting behind a gas cover, which they call a hood. And I'm looking at that. So from even before that, in the very first scene, when he's typing up the paper, I'm reading what he's writing. I'm like, oh yeah, this reads research papers that I've read. I really want to run this by my wife to see if the paragraph that he had written about whatever the results were from his experiment, did that make sense? Because clearly this is probably from a manuscript, a real one. And then his pipetting, I talk to my wife all the time, and she always tells me the most tedious fucking shit ever is that you just sit down, you're like on a bench, you got the gas hood up, and you are just pipetting for hours and hours and hours.
What?
You know, doing like, 5,000 samples by hand, which is what he was doing.
Yeah.
And they actually let that scene play for a hot minute. Like, he gloved up and he was doing all that. I was like, bro, somebody knows what the fuck they're talking about when they put this together, because this is real. This is an attention to detail. They even did a close-up shot of like zoom in on the pipette.
Oh yeah,
zoom in on
yeah.
like,
That's why I thought something
the...
was gonna go wrong with the experiment because they like zoomed into that. So I was like, oh, he's gonna break a vial or some shit.
Nope,
and, like,
it is just fucking tedious, and you will be there hour after hour. When people talk about like research is grueling, that's the shit they mean. It's not like it's not your big brain trying to solve problems. It's like I have to be at a bench for weeks and months on this shit. So I was immediately sold on just like the attention to detail, and then like episode 1 was interesting because they give us a main character who's overpowered, and as you point out at the end of the episode, it's actually not a good thing, or at least like that's the problem. The problem is that he's OP. You know what I mean? That's a great way to start, because now the power scaling can be separated from the rest of the plot. He's gonna have issues because he's powerful, not like he solves every problem because he's powerful. So I was like, bruh, sign me up.
And the fact that their medicine is like way behind.
Garbage.
Yeah, it's like way behind. But then also there's magic to supplement it. So I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna come into something this like blah 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 whatever da da da. Some things that he probably wasn't able to solve in the human world, not the human, but like the original world, might be solvable now due to his new powers. But yeah, that was just the first episode for me. You're clearly much further than me, but I liked it. I liked it. Like, really did enjoy that fucking first episode.
100%.
What else did I watch this week? Oh, I watched the second episode of Summertime Rendering, and just as much gagged as the first one. Yeah, like, and I'm pretty sure it's just gonna be even crazier from there on out. But the way that, like, it was just like a scene after scene of homegirl just like stabbing niggas up, and I was like, wait a second, like, at first, but then things are already making sense because the things from the first episode were explained in the second episode. Where she got the gun. How come homeboy was looking at him crazy in the fucking diner that in the first episode. Why her bike fucking fell out like that. I guess like seeing the shadow and like is there more than one? And then so now I watched that, and now I'm just like, well, now I got more questions, because how many shadows are out there, and is there an original shadow? Can all of them do that shit? And blah 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 blah. And who are you talking to? And why are you doing this shit? And why are you going after this family? And why should you even do something about it? Like, a lot, but still enjoyed it just as much as the first episode. So I will be like, I'm going to marathon that shit. I'm going to catch up on that shit before it ends this season. Like, I have to.
It's good. It's really good. Remind me, episode 2, how does it end? What's the ending of that one?
Oh shit, what is the end of that? Homegirl she stabs him up. He does the repeat. Oh, he shows the sister the video of the shadow waiting outside for her with the knife.
Okay, all right, got it. So, man, so much shit has happened. I was like, I was trying to like place where in the story.
Yeah.
So one thing.
Oh, and he did the first time skip where it didn't go back to the boat. Like, it went back to the pier as opposed to the boat. So I was like, oh, you're losing time? Like, or is it like you get so far ahead? I was like, I don't know what the rules are for that yet. But
yeah. So one thing I think is very interesting. So I watched a little bit of it. Did not finish. Muv-Love. Which is, again, like a kind of time travel visual novel sort of structured story. I mean, it is a visual novel, but the story is also structured that way. So you have like these routes that that the character goes down. And one thing I really liked about Summertime Rendering is that they kind of tease you in the first 2 episodes about like, okay, he gets the concept of what's happening here. So his first priority is to figure out how he can just not die and then have other people not die. And that gives you the impression that, like, that's what the direction of the story really is. But very quickly, you are disabused of that notion. I will say no more than that. And to me, that's where the structure of the time travel works in favor of the storytelling, because you kind of point out that it looked like he's losing time. Well, now you have put a ticking clock into a story about time reversal.
Yeah.
That in and of itself, just like including a thing like that, adds a level of stakes that go beyond just, what could physically happen to a character, because we've already established, like, bro, you could get your brains blown out, you could be torn apart, you know what I mean, like anything.
There was also something that she said after she killed him in the second episode, when the cop shadow asked her, he was like, oh, you're not gonna make him a shadow, and before she could finish her sentence, he had started to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I also saw someone, and it looked like he already has a shadow walking around, because when the next day, I think homegirl, who the fuck was it? The I don't know, the girl in all black, she was looking at the funeral from afar, and it showed the little girl, who I'm assuming is already a shadow, with the little pigtails. She and her mom were walking away from a person with a hat that had a black ponytail, and I was like, what, that looks like him from the back, but they didn't show the front of that person. So I'm already looking for little shit where I'm just what's going on? But yeah, I can only imagine where shit's gonna go.
Yeah, so it's fun. I'm happy that you've acquainted yourself with the show. Now, watch a couple more episodes, then come back, and then we'll talk about some bullshit. So fucking some grade A. Holy fuck! What the fuck?
Okay.
Shit.
But that's about it for what I watched.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess we can go to news. Oh wait, did you speak on your topic that you already said you
No, but I think we can this may be an enduring sort of theme to come back to. So I wouldn't necessarily frame it as a topic, but just something that's been bothering me for a while, especially having gone through, recently, both reading and watching a lot of very similar content. So I want to preface what I'm about to say in that I get the fact that wherever we were with anime and that culture and what it's birthed creatively, it's been, we're going on 70 years, 60 years, for the about 70 years maybe, for the actual formation of a medium. It's a young, medium to do storytelling in. And definitely you could look back at any era or set of years and you see a lot of similar stuff or things that are inspired by what came before. So take what I'm saying with that in context. I am very, very convinced, I grow more convinced every single day, that there are very niche or narrow genres in anime. This is not the fandom. This is actually on the creator side, where I think the creators are afraid of their fans. So
I can see that.
So let me back that up. If you think about how anime, manga, creative media is produced in any place, you're always going to be kind of slave to trends, slave to the past, but then also slave to the expectations of your audience. So if you get really specific, let's just talk about the last 10 years of I'll call it the atomization of the isekai genre. That's to say that what used to be this very broad category that just covered stories that involved characters getting whisked away to some other world. Doesn't have to be even a world outside of our own. It could be something even a Studio Ghibli film where somebody enters a door and they're just in another place. It's an old fairy tale storytelling thing. But in the last 10 years, you've seen some very, very successful properties that were so successful that it became impossible to make almost anything other than a thing inspired by those things. Happened in light novels, it's bled over into anime and manga, and adaptations of those things.
Yeah.
So we're at a point now where you'll start reading or watching a series, and what you will discover is that the author is very familiar with the genre that he or she is writing for, and they will just include things where if you are a reader of such things, you already know all the rules already, right?
Where
they just
it's
assume,
going.
right? They assume you know the tropes, so they just skip explaining and get right to the story. So that's what happens when a genre becomes very mature is one way of saying it. I would also say inbred is another. And then you get this problem where fans inside of that genre then start to expect to be treated a certain way by the stories that they are consuming. So, like, a perfect example is, why is it that I can go back and look at the last, 5 years, 20 seasons worth of anime, and it's hard for me to find very many examples in the isekai genre of fully actualized women who push back and aren't, categorically, a yandere or a tsundere, right? Women who have hopes and dreams that may conflict with the main character and whatever he or she needs to do, in the world of the story. Why can I find that? There are examples. They're out there. I would actually say like ReZero is a prime example where, Subaru is not treated as if he is an amazing, beautiful, perfect specimen.
No.
Because it's pertinent
liability.
Right. It's pertinent to the storytelling and the plot. And yet, finding those types of characters is hard. Now, you might say to yourself, well, it's because, it's a patriarchal society. I think there's a more, direct reason. The direct reason is that most of the people who read this shit or watch this shit pay money. They buy the figures. They buy the light novels. They don't want to be challenged by a story that is critical of them. Because they're in this to be like, I'm trapped in the other world. I'm that guy. All the people who didn't pay attention to me and didn't treat me well in my real life, well, vicariously in this story, this character gets it all. The first woman who sees him thinks he's the greatest thing ever and follows and listens to him like a slave. Or is literally a slave.
Yeah.
Isn't interested in any other people, doesn't question him about his failures, doesn't, have any real agency of her own, goals or anything else that conflict with what the man is doing. This is a experience I will never have in my life. I will never have this experience. So I'm going to expect that when I'm reading or watching or consuming, that I'm going to be delivered this experience or I won't be there. And I think the authors, to the extent that they are paying attention to what their audience wants, they're afraid of those people. Which is why they are so dead set, I think, against writing against type or telling stories against type and challenging a lot of those folks through their characters in the kinds of things that everyone understands are flaws and failures, right? It's sort of like when you go and you interview for a job and every job asks you the same stupid fucking question. It's always like, can you name something that you're bad at? And what do people always do? They try to frame something they're good at as if it's a bad thing. Mm-hmm. No, I just work too hard, Oh, when I get a task and I just want to do it myself and make sure that it's perfect and I need to learn to delegate. This is some fucking bullshit. That's what it's just fucking bull. It's glad-handing garbage. And the reason why it happens isn't because people are evil or stupid or whatever. It's because the incentive to actually be vulnerable and say, I suffer from crippling depression and it takes over when I feel like I'm overwhelmed by a thing that I actually can do, but I'm just too afraid to try because if I try, I might fail and that would destroy me. And so I counter that by doing nothing or delaying or whatever. No one's going to fucking answer a question that way. And it's kind of the same way with a lot of these series is that you have the perfect setup to actually examine what is wrong with people and the structure of most of these stories, no matter what the genre, is usually you can watch a character make mistakes, overcome challenges, grow, and become better. But in some of these little micro, subgenres, doing that would be suicide, for a property. So, I say all that to mean that my eyes are open, and I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to a lot of the stuff that I consume, over the next forever, and looking for supporting evidence, for or against this premise. But I can tell you right now, almost all the shit I've been watching this season is falling right in line with that. Unless it's like, made for women, especially. This is kind of like it irritates me at like a fundamental level. Especially because I know that Japan is a country where the government is literally spending millions and millions of dollars trying to get people out of their bedrooms and back into normal society and dating and marrying and potentially producing children because they have a negative growth rate. This is the actual, like in the United States, we just bring in more Mexicans, right? More Africans. When we look at the birth rate, white people can't reproduce. Like, we'll go get some other people. It's fine. Over there, they're like, no one can come in, and our people ain't fucking because they're either too busy, or they're fucking neats, or they have crippling social anxiety and can't talk to a member of the opposite sex. This shit ain't helping. Okay? It's not helping. So, it's my rant.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a topic. I don't know how you feel about that, but...
Okay. I mean, no, it does all make sense. But you said like it was like an ongoing rant, or like it could be something that you could bring up when you feel like we're covering something of a...
Yeah, because like I someone had thrown me a link to a review of Visions of Escaflowne, which I always forget is an isekai. And by the way, the Escaflowne movie, if people have not seen that, go fucking watch that shit. That shit is a fucking masterpiece. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. It's great. But like, number one, the main character is female. She has character flaws. She goes through the same arcs you normally would in, any other kind of isekai. The male leads, or the primary male lead, is everything that the writers for like SAO would want Kirito to be, except he's a real person and kind of sucks, and everyone is aware of the ways in which he sucks. Yeah. And half of the show is getting him to realize the ways that he sucks and then get better, right? It'd be, like all the shit that I wish they'd be doing today. And I realize one of the reasons for that is Escaflowne was produced in the 90s. It was written by a woman, and it was in a period of time where isekai was very popular. But the difference was it wasn't atomized to target just, boys and young men age 13 to like 24 who live at home and have no social skills and are just using the genre as a way to act out a power fantasy. If this was before, those people existed, in numbers back then, but the genre wasn't fucking bent around them. You know what I mean? Where now I'm watching some of these series, I'm like, can we just not do this anymore? There's more people in the world that you could tell stories about in this context that aren't either like whiny anti-hero, badasses, or conversely, niggas who don't shower and are perverts. There's more to this, but it seems like there's less. So that's why, it's an enduring concern of mine that I'll probably come back to again.
I mean, as long as they're making the money, I feel like they're gonna be like, whatever, keep putting this shit out.
It's SAO's fault. It made too much money. It made too much money. It just did. I don't know what to tell you. Like Excel World was somewhat popular.
Oh, I can't believe they never did another. They did the movie, but they never continued it.
And the funny part is that, like, for all the problems that Excel World has that, like, SAO magnifies into, nonsense. Yeah. The premise of Excel World was actually the thing that I'm talking about, which is, in the context of the show itself, the main character is a piece of shit, like a fat fuck with like with like, you know, everything about him is just unappealing. He's depressed and like, you know, his life is whack, and the only thing he's good at...
His best friend looks down on him.
Yeah, like his life fucking sucks, and Excel World itself is an escape for him where he can be the things that he can't be in real life. And then the course of the story is like him growing as a person outside of the fucking game. Like that's the whole, you know what I mean? Like whatever problem you have with you know, the author and his inability to write like three-dimensional characters, especially women. Excel World is a template for what needs to be fixed. And SAO just like made too much money, so everyone fucking forgot the original work that inspired it. It's even in the same universe. Is actually doing the right thing.
Wait, they're in the same universe?
Yes, yeah. I think Excel World technically, I think it takes place in the far future from when SAO occurs.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. Okay. Wow.
Oh, so anyway, like it just strikes me as so frustrating that that's what's happened to an entire genre, that it's just been bent around its fan base, and the creators are either too much a part of that fan base to really like test their mettle with like, you know, more well thought out material, or that they are literally afraid of their fan base, and as a result limit themselves and like what they can do with the opportunity in that, like the creative opportunity in that space.
Well, some of them would say if it ain't broke, then why fix it?
I mean, that's commercial art for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is broke, but to them, it's not. They ain't at
It's still some parts of it still print money. You may know better than me about like the light novel side, because like it's gotten to the point where it's like these light novels are basically just a the entire premise of the story explained in a title, and then like some like fan servicey girl leaning against a generic high school student looking character, and that's the whole selling point. They don't give a fuck about anything else.
Or a big titted girl carrying a sword because you got reincarnated as a sword. Because that's what's coming soon.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, hey, at least I'm okay with this. I'm completely cool with the slime ones and the big titties. Makes sense to me, at least. But,
yes. I'm not saying they're trash. These things are all, many of them are very good.
I just don't understand, like, I enjoy SAO, but I don't understand why it's kept skyrocketing, because the first core was the only good one. So, like, Alfheim Online that came, like, directly after was bad. Like, I distinctly remember watching it and being like, this second season, not the second season, but this second core fucking sucks. Like, I don't care. Your fucking sister cousin is jonesing to fuck you the whole time. Like, what is going on? Like, what is this? Oh, yeah.
Ugh. I don't want to like rant about shows that are not fully current. I mean, we are kind of getting the remake and all the other shit for SAO. And
Progressive, which honestly, I haven't watched any of those yet, but I'm kind of just like, wait, so you're introducing all these new characters that apparently were there the whole time, but you never did. It's all said anything about them, but they did do a whole bunch of time skips in SAO.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
okay, yeah.
Like I think I'm gonna say this like in the nicest way possible, because I do respect the hustle. Reki Kawahara is a horrible writer, but to his credit, he knows that. He's not one of these people who's like up his own ass. Like, he's on record all the time, like Kishimoto, right? Like, these they know what they're bad at. You know what I mean? Like, they get it. They get the legit criticisms of their work. If you look over time, I would argue that all of them have gotten better. Reki Kawahara kind of, I think, the success of SAO kind of created its own feedback loop where, well, whatever, I won't get into it. But, like, the bottom line is that, like, he's not very good at a lot of things, but what he did get right about his original story here was that the death game genre and the isekai genre have always been sort of like close to each other. Well, they've been separated, but they've been sort of close. Like even something like Batum and all those other sorts of. The concept is take a bunch of people out of the regular life suddenly, drop them into a new environment, shock them with the possibility that they might be violently killed, and then force them to have to go through a bunch of trials of like death, the death game, and get out of the other end. Perfect stakes. You kind of remove all of the boundaries of the real world, and then you kind of get down to some Lord of the Flies crazy nonsense where like people can go insane. Your main character can be tested not just physically but mentally. You can kill off large numbers of people. You can be very violent. Like that's a great formula, and then you just add it to the sort of traditional anime isekai, go to another world, and then make it modern and have it say, oh, it's literally a video game. Everyone understands video games of that generation, so now they can picture themselves like, this could be me. And then you give them a badass main character, give them 2 fucking swords, like, it's great. That's a good creative combination. I say good, just like marketable, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to tell a story inside of that, and that's where it all kind of falls apart. But the premise was so strong that it kind of just blew up on premise alone. And then once people like a concept, they'll make any excuse to justify why it's good or why they want to follow it. I mean, I think it's just trash, but trash is good. There's nothing wrong with trash. I like a lot of trash. But it's when you extend trash past its, expiration date. Yeah. And that's what happened here, I think. But it made a shit ton of money, and once something makes a shit ton of money, you better damn well believe you're going to keep getting that same shit every fucking year.
It's never going anywhere.
We're going to give this nigga 3 swords next time. We'll give him 8 swords. He'll wear like 3 capes and fucking teleport. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like it just gets.
I mean, they
what
never
more
went
can
into
you do?
detail on what happened when they were trapped in the Alicization world for 100 years. So that's a whole other, where like he and Asuna became the fucking king and queen. So that's a whole other.
I don't want to know what happened because I don't care because it's not interesting. But to me, I'm not saying it's bad, but just it's all wrapped around itself. That's what I just see. I just see like these. Imagine like a little like a rubber band, right? And the rubber band represents like a story or concepts for a story. And when you have the rubber band slack, there's all this space you could play with to like do new things. But each thing you do, you're like tightening that rubber band. You're tightening it, and at some point, it either snaps and the whole thing falls apart, and we lose an entire genre, kind of like the giant robot genre, which is basically dead, right? Because there were 30 fucking years of niggas doing the same story but bigger.
Mazinger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, those are fucking, a lot of those are classics, but I'm saying that they worked that genre to death. To fucking death. I went and looked in like in the course of like 4 years in the 70s, there were like 60 like giant superhero robot shows.
Cause those toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too many. Like I'm stumbling across shit I never heard of, and I'm looking at some of it's like lost media now, but like fuck. What was one that I ran across like earlier this week? I was blown away because it was a gateway. It was like Super Lord Gao Kaiser or something or whatever. And there had been like 5 series and a bunch of movies. I had never heard of this in my life. And I'm one of those people who's like, I feel like I've watched enough shit where I'm like, I've basically seen everything. But no, I had not seen this, and I didn't realize that the thing I started watching, which wasn't that good, was like the 3rd sequel in this series. TV series. They all got produced in like the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah,
so like
makes sense.
So like genres have like gone too far, gotten wrapped around themselves, and then like collapsed. And I don't know if that's gonna happen to isekai in general.
Isekai, yeah.
But if sure does. There we go. Galactic Whirlwind Sasuraiger. That's what it was.
Have no idea who the fuck.
Never heard of it in my life.
Never.
Exactly.
Sasuraiger.
It was the same studio that produced it was the one that produced Macross. But it was before.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
so
okay.
whatever. Yeah. So just it's. I'm on the lookout. I want to. If you're gonna give me another 10 years of isekai garbage, I just want to see a little more
Yo, they got this
creativity
on
based on real
Blu-ray?
life.
Oh shit. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well. Well, all right, let's go on the news then.
I ain't got no new or nothing serious.
Let's see. One Punch Man season 3 expected.
New studio, right?
Yeah, new studio. DBZ movie is over 32 million outside of Japan. Speaking of Mecha, we are getting a Gridman universe anime film. So
I'm excited about that.
yeah, I still need to finish Dynazenon.
Oh, but, you should. You should. It's really good.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I enjoyed Gridman. So I was just like, I don't know what the fuck is the holdup with me watching Dynazenon. But yeah, I'm excited. And they have it's the main character of Dynazenon on this. Oh. Wait a second. Are they going to combine? Oh my God. Okay.
I mean, they should.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that happening. But this promotional thing with the mecha that looks fucking sick. Oh my God. That happened. What else is there? Oh, Undead Unluck is getting an anime, which I've always heard about the series. Of course, I didn't read anything about it, but I was just like, I feel like this is gonna get, because this has been out longer than Kaiju
number 8. That's an interesting one, because maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, it was really struggling in the volume sales, and to the point where people were presuming that it might be on the cut list for the year, but it survived. Oh. And I would suspect that the anime release and the announcement of it probably will do what it always does and drive a lot of manga sales. I haven't read it beyond the first like 4 or 5 chapters. Yeah. The one thing I can say about it is that it is a comedy shonen that, at least in the beginning, the big hook seemed to kind of be some outdated fan service, because the main character, who's female, is constantly getting groped by the other main character, who is the guy with powers. And so that, like, it didn't turn me off to the series, but I'm looking at it like, man, this feels really outdated. Like, like this comedy, if you want to call it comedy, seems more
veiled sexual assault.
Yeah, and but like, I don't want to. When the trailers drop, people will understand. But the story is basically that this woman has like negative luck. Like it just being near her is like, you're likely to die in a natural disaster, because yeah, and so because of that, she can't get close to anybody. She has no friends. And just basically tries to shut herself off from the world. And then she runs across a guy who has superpowers and is like, engaged in some kind of battle with an organization or whatever. But she discovers that like he can't die. So he's like Wolverine, like regenerates from anything. He's also kind of like a zombie-ish, whatever. They don't get too much into where his powers come from. But because of that, he can survive being around her. Because if horrible things happen, he'll just, regenerate. Yeah. And the fact that she can't really control that horrible luck, in combination with a guy who can't die, they both become like friends and weapons for each other.
Because her fight. Unluckiness can come in handy.
It can fuck other people up real bad. Yeah. Or it can create scenarios where only he could survive or capitalize. Because of his regenerative. So there's a lot of like good bare bones shonen stuff and a lot of comedy.
That sounds like an interesting premise, though. Yeah.
It's not bad. I just remember reading it and thinking like, this isn't really for me, because this other part of it, the fan service part, feels rapey. Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm being groped, and then like you're on to the next one. I'm like, I don't know about that, but okay.
Okay.
Okay. But it's again an anime, so there you go.
What else is there? Made in Abyss, 1 hour finale. More Rohan Kishibe live action episodes are coming. And what is this? Someone did you see that shit about the American Sailor Moon?
Yes.
What the fuck were they thinking? Oh my god, it looks so bad. It looks so bad.
It's almost unbelievable until you think about what a producer or a production studio would be thinking about trying to translate something like a Sailor Moon to a 80s American audience before the idea of like anime existed. It's horrific. Everything about it sucks. But it's almost like a time capsule into a kind of thinking that would, hopefully we move past. But man, they even fucked her hair up. Like that's the basic. That's the
so basic. Fucking bad. This is like really bad. And the fact that they have like a black girl in there, I was like, you guys are literally just trying to copy like Power Rangers, or some shit right now. Like this is okay. It looks the bodies look blocky, like the hair, which they tried to make her into basically like a celebrity white woman.
Yes,
like that's all they just tried to do. So. I don't know. Maybe because they saw the lesbian. Wait, were the lesbians weren't even in the manga by then? I feel. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks so bad. I'm not watching that 2-hour fucking YouTube video about the history of it though. I'm not doing that.
I'm sure I'll get around to it when I'm like, I just need something to talk while I do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. Okay, so I want to know what your recommendation is because you said
yes,
so good.
Yes. So, like I said, had a lot of time to read when I was sitting on a beach in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And one of the discoveries that I made that I was so happy that I did, even though I burned through all of it, so now I'm like, fuck, I have to wait again. Is a manhwa called Player.
Player.
Okay. It's by Jong-suk Park. So I just complained a lot about like isekai and the challenges of like writing a good one and how many derivative versions there are. And what I was shocked to find in this series was that it's much more of a straightforward shonen story. And why I find that so shocking is that if you really think about it, there's not a lot of those anymore. So what do I mean when I say like a straightforward shonen? Simple main character, simple backstory, trauma that's understandable, power-ups come slowly.
I like the art style.
The art style is really unique and like cool, and as a lot of manhwa that are popular kind of go, as the series gets more circulation and popularity, the art follows along, gets better and better and better. So what is the general premise? So in the real world, our main character, I think it's Jin Seo-hung or something. I'm not good pronouncing Korean names. He's bullied at school constantly, and he has an experience where he thinks he's made a good friend who helps him out of a bullying situation, only to find out that that person despises him, or at the very least was sort of trying to look good by helping him. So, he's admittedly not happy about this. And all the while you're in the real world, you're presented with this manhwa series called Player that some people read and are familiar with, including the bully who's messing with him. And he is transported, he doesn't like get killed or whatever. He just happens to be reading something on his smartphone on a bus, and he is selected by God to go into this other world, which is weirdly a lot like the manhwa that he was reading and that bully was reading. And so he has a moment with God, who you can't see his face, and the God basically gives him a sword and throws him into this other world with no real explanation as to what's going on.
I see the sword.
And then that's your setup for the story, is that he's in this other world, he has this sword given by God, and, you know, it's powerful, but he's not. And that's it. That's just where you get it. That's where you start. And the thing I like about it is the shonen structure of the storytelling. So typically, when you're dealing with isekai, it's structured as an adventure, right? You want to climb the tower, beat the dungeon, da da da. Same structure here, but because the main character himself is not overpowered, it creates a lot of tension when he's separated from the sword, which is a sentient, you know, ego sword that is, you know, obviously is a cute girl, and then eventually that changes and other things go down. But it's just, when you're reading it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it, this is fun. And then as you sort of get chapter by chapter, you realize that, like, oh, no, this is just like vanilla shonen with pretty decent production value and characters that get cooler and cooler and cooler, and it's really the artist's variety of characters. I would say it's, I don't know if this is true, but I would not be shocked to find out that both the writer and the main artist were very, very influenced by Tower of God. Very influenced, because I can
see that.
Because it feels, especially as you get to like some of the early interactions with the quote unquote tower, and you see the wide variety of like character designs, these different races, these different powers, and you're like, oh, this would be like if you took the sort of aesthetic of Tower of God, but then you just put it onto a very, very solidly constructed shonen. They give you the mentor character who is, you know, super powered, but also secretly has, you know, an agenda, and also is flawed and has problems and da da da. So it's your Kakashi slash, you know, Satoru Gojo kind of guy. But they make that character very relatable because you meet that character as a actual character in a manhwa, right? And so the main character and the other individual who shows up a little bit later, who also has knowledge from the real world, think that they understand who these characters are, only to meet them and realize that no, they are actually fully realized people. And there's things going on with them that were not captured in the story that they were reading, you know, that make it more interesting, because the main character they're not omniscient. They're getting to know the world along with you. The other cool thing, speaking of like wacky powers, is that I mentioned that the god sent him there. He's actually an active character in the plot. You kind of find out that
every time he shows up, are you able to not see his face, or do you
can never see his face? But he kind of has the aesthetic of like, you know, a young adult slacker in his like video game room, you know, but he's also got like a pile of legendary weapons behind him. And one of the neat things, which happens, you know, fairly early, or maybe I won't say early, but about halfway through, is that, you know, there's a lot of comedy here, but you find out that the god actually has the ability, the god's name is Arthur, has the ability to take over the main character's body and manipulate him like he's playing a video game. And so there actually are sequences where he pulls out a controller, because he's watching the story on a screen. He pulls out a controller, starts doing fighting game inputs, and makes the main character kick a lot of ass. But it's always framed as Arthur doesn't respect anything about the
main MC,
right, or anybody. Like they're all just like characters for its amusement. And
wait, can he do that with other people in addition to the MC?
Well, he also manipulates other things in the world to get a certain story that he wants, and we don't know what that is. And so ultimately, he's more of an antagonist character than a support character. But it's not one of those stories where it starts with like the main character hates the shitty god that brought him here. You know, it's not it that storyline develops as a result of things that naturally occur in the series. There's also a ton of really fun supporting characters. There's a very tightly controlled love triangle. This is not a harem, and all of the supporting cast get development. They interact with each other. They have their own stories that are kind of separate from the main character, and at the same time, it basically follows a lot of the template of Tower of God in the sense that the main character gets separated from everybody, and then it's like, you gotta find him, and meanwhile, they're all going in different directions, joining different groups, and, you know, while they're hunting for information, and it's just like, I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, they cribbed a lot of notes from other popular series, but then remixed it in a way that feels, again, a little unique, fun, funny, well drawn, but still sits on a very basic shonen structure. And the main character is a genuinely, you know, relatable
person.
Yeah, likable, relatable, strong moral character. Isn't afraid to get his hands dirty doing stuff, but is not an anti-hero. It's a very much like hero, you know. So that's cool. And then as the little layers of the world get unpacked, there's actually some depth there, and they really have opened up the story in the latter half. They've had some good villains, you know, some recurring villains, a storyline.
Do the arcs move pretty like speedily, or
yeah, like, there's like a kind of a tournament arc early on that kind of gets you in the mood, and there's a couple that come after. But there's maybe one that I think drags a little bit, but it's more because it's bookended by training stuff. But I had a great time and an easy time reading it, and by the time you're around like in the, you know, 80-90 chapters deep, the art, which was already good looking to begin with, really steps up and starts doing a lot of things that I think, you know, just look great. They just look great. And there's still humor. There's still a lot of visual gags and other things that genuinely made me laugh, which is hard to do for a lot of reasons. So Player is something I enjoyed. Never heard of it before a week ago, and would recommend.
Okay. Nice. All I was gonna recommend this week is Zatch Bell. You know, go read or watch Zatch Bell.
Oh yeah.
Either or. I read a few of the new chapters of like what had dropped already, and I was like, I kind of don't really remember a lot of this. So then I went backwards again, and I was just like, this shit was entertaining. Even the dub, like the American dub, I started watching some of that, and I was like, you know what? There's a reason why I fucked heavily with this show. And where the American dub ended it was bullshit, to be honest. Because it was getting really good at that point. And then I think at that point in time, like, I was still relatively new, so I didn't even know that shit continued on outside of America. I was like, they ended it there. That means that's the end of the series. And then, of course, like, the manga kept going and all kind of shit like that. So, yeah, read Zatch Bell. Just, like, even if you just want something to, like, laugh at, the cast of characters, fucking hilarious. The growth, especially with the books. Also, back around to, like, the supporting cast and, like, you know, the people who are evil but then aren't evil, like what is it, like Homegirl with like the dark guy, then like they're like against the world and the competition, all the kind of shit like that. All of it is just fucking fun. It's a fun fucking ride, and now that I feel like the new one's gonna be a little bit more bloodier than the original, so yeah, Zatch Bell, read or watch it, or you know, watch the dub and then pick back up with the manga and then keep it going or whatever. Did the Japanese anime version completely adapt it?
That's a good question. I was under the impression that,
or did they both stop at that same arc?
I know neither was complete, and
neither of them completed. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
that's all I know though.
Okay. But yeah, that's my recommendation for the week.
That's a baller. I love Zatch Bell. I didn't think I would like it when I first saw it. I'm like,
really?
Because I looked at it, I was like, what the fuck is this? This little nigga wearing a dress.
The
like,
first part of it is like, it is silly, especially with the horse one and shit like that. I'm just like, this is silly. But then as it kept going, I enjoyed the power-ups that occurred, especially with like the book, learning new spells, the ways that they use the spells. And then I think my favorite part, I mean, like Zatch Bell, whatever, they were like cool as fuck or whatever. But the all the new characters, especially when there was like a tournament or competition that would come in, like seeing how like their like homegirl and like the fuck, what are they? Whatever, they had like gravity powers.
Yep.
And so like when they would come back in another arc, they'd learn a new spell, but you'd be like, what is a new spell? What kind of gravity thing? Because the spells got more nuanced the more that they learned. So
Zatch Bell is low key a classic. But it's low key because people forget about it because I think it aired on Adult Swim, right? But not for a long time. I think early on, it was it was maybe like at the second wave of like shows that they put on. Yeah. But I kind of missed it. And then came to it later. I'm like, oh, Zatch Bell. And I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. Watched the first couple episodes. Like, is this what people were going on about? Went away. Came back. I think I wound up reading
the latter half is where like that's what I remembering primarily from like Adult Swim, because the first half of it I was like, I don't know if I really fuck with this, and then randomly I came across it again. I was like, I'm just watch this episode, whatever. I'm fucking home. And I was like, yo, these niggas are actually going at, like, when he learned that spell? Or what the fuck is this? And blah, 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 blah. So, like, it got way better. And then I just watched what I could. Because I think they were on that, like, weird shit where they were, like, alternating shows.
Yeah. So I actually read it. And so I saw, like, a few episodes. But actually and I read it later. I read it, like, when I was in college. So it was definitely, like, off TV at that point. And I was like, bro, this is actually... is this what people were talking about? Goddamn! So, I've never actually watched the later bits of the seasons that are out there. I only watched, like, the first few episodes.
Yeah, that whole thing where they were, like, in the castle and shit like that, that was just non-stop fucking action. Like, I love that shit. But, yeah, I need to brush up on my memories from the first part, because I was like, I kind of have no idea what the fuck's going on. So... yeah, Zatch Bell.
Well, that's what's up. I'd co-sign that one, but I actually need to watch it.
All right, I guess that is it for this week, everybody. If you haven't already, go to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and just follow us at Anime Savants, and then on Twitter, just anime_savants. The other episodes will be dropping very soon. There was one, what was it, like 101 that dropped last week. And yeah, you guys are just gonna get the rest of the 4 all at once. I'll try to space it out because they're all like 2 hours minimum. So that's a lot for me to just drop it all in one day. But yeah, it'll be a lot. So we'll fill up your Saturday morning all day, cleaning routine or whatever. Whichever one it is. But yeah.
And to the individual who recommended that I watch Licorice Recoil, I will get to it. I promise you, I will get to it.
Oh my god, people are like going crazy about that show.
I will get to it. Now, I just want to say right off, just before we get out of here, that like I was a big fan of like Gunsmith Cats and like whatever, but I'm but I'm generally not all that into like lollies with guns. That's not my preferred genre. But I've heard some good ass shit about it. Besides, the recommendation, so I will get to it.
Okay.
Good, bad, or otherwise, I will get to it.
I'll try to get a few episodes in also. Maybe we can talk about that next week.
Yep. Otherwise, you can always hit me up on Twitter at Neural Handshake. I do take some requests if I have time, so let's consider that a request that I'm trying to fill. But that's it.
Okay.
All right.
All right then. That's all. Bye.
Peace out.